welcome to Casual Chat. This is Brian Germain, and I've got the coolest guest ever. I've got Makumba, and he's a skydiver that I met years ago up in Voss, Norway, and just one of these really unique characters that has an insightful view of the world, not just from a regular skydive perspective, but you're a philosopher, you're a scientist, you're a historian, you're a teacher. And so, we wanted to, my goal with Casual Chat is find really fascinating people and chat.
And you have met a few in your life. You have met a few, I'm sure.
Yeah.
In your travels.
I feel honored. Yeah. People that don't live in the normal sort of realm have a lot to say. Yeah. So maybe if you could, sort of like, how did you start jumping out of airplane? What's the
I think in 1993, a crazy Italian dude from Skydive Cape Town, Anton Scalabrino, he came around to our school and offered a discount for like a group skydiving thing. And he came for a weekend to the school, trained us up, and then threw us all out of an airplane on Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon.
And that's static line, or?
Yeah, static line. Yeah. And then I only did that one jump because I was a teenager and I was a surfer and I didn't have money to carry on skydiving.
Sure.
And then I think I was at the same school teaching art, and I think it was the jewelry teacher came to me and asked me, do I want to go skydiving on the weekend? And I was like, oh, for sure, I'll come along. I'd love to come along. And that week I was rollerblading through traffic, and I saw a friend of mine in traffic who was actually a heroin junkie at the time. And he told me to come back to his house, and he was going on about all the stuff he wanted to do with his life, and base jumping was one of those things. So I said, well, I'm booked in this weekend, you come with me. And we started the course together. And I think in 2 weeks we were doing static line. So in 2 weeks we are on free fall on the third weekend. And now he's actually a tandem master in Hawaii. He's been there for I think 6 or 8 years, and a couple of thousand jumps, base jumps. So he was a real success story.
Yeah.
And that was just a chance encounter in traffic. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. And so, how did you end up? I mean, because you run the most amazing pizza joint in all of Norway for sure, right there on Skydive Voss. But how did you end up there?
It's a bit of a sad story, but it actually turned out to be a good story. There was an element at the skydiving club that was kind of trying to push me out, and I was forced into finding a new niche for myself. So I wasn't going to leave on anyone else's terms. So I just decided. I used to clean up around there just for extra jumps. And I probably used to throw 50 or 60 frozen pizza boxes on the fire every week. And I always had a thought in my mind, someone should build a pizza oven here, because that'd probably make a killing.
Yeah, oh, it's beautiful. It's a work of art, what you did there.
Thanks, buddy. So yeah, I put a request into the club to build the oven, and I went back to our family farm in South Africa, and I built a practice oven. And then came back and built the real thing there the next season.
Yeah. Well, if the skydivers don't have something to eat on the drop zone, they spend more money out there in Babylon, and they leave, and it breaks down this, the opportunity, I think, to hang out and communicate when we're not actively jumping. And I think that's a big part of the sport, isn't it? It's not just about the
jumping. Of course. And after jumping at the end of each day, people tend to either bleed off to go get their food at home or go to a restaurant or something. And now, like with the bonfire around and the drop zone in such pristine condition, like I find that the pizza is surrounded the whole night, like people are out there. I'm constantly trying to think of ways to make it better and for people, but Andreas seems to just do that all the time. You know, he's got the,
Yep.
the music system set up there now. The lighting's getting better. I think this year there's going to be 1 or 2 more changes to improve things. But yeah, it's been going from strength to strength.
Yeah, quality of life. I mean, I think Skydive Boss is such a great example
Yeah.
of how to create a livable community where people don't want to leave. I mean, sure, once
Yeah.
in a while you want to go to town and you got to go shopping, of course, but
Yeah.
to be there, there's everything you would want is right there.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a little bubble. It's a little bubble. Sometimes we find that we haven't ventured out past the local shopping center where we get our produce from for weeks at a time. You know, we
Yeah.
just either get in a car, suit up, or get on the bicycle and put the little kiddies hanger behind. Cycle to the shop with the kids, pile all the food on top of the kids, and cycle back home.
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of people don't know. So you've got kids like me, and kids on the drop zone. Some people think, well, they don't belong there. I hear that a lot. Some drop zones I go to, they ban children and dogs. They put them in the same category, and that doesn't make sense to me. I mean,
No.
I want my kids around the happiest people I can find.
For sure, and I mean it's an inspiring environment for them to be in. You know, kids always love airplanes. They love seeing canopies landing. There's a climbing tower. There's a kiddies park. There's a slack line. There's trampolines.
Yep.
There's lots going on, and it's actually quite a kiddie-friendly drop zone because a lot of the skydivers have kids as well.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
the Norwegians in general are good with kids.
Yes, they respect kids.
Yeah.
And they give them the opportunity to be a kid, you know,
For sure.
not try to turn them into miniature grown-ups in training for the corporate world or something.
And for sure, they also let them go a little bit past their comfort level sometimes. You know, that I see most parents that like I would know would be stopping their kids doing things where the Norwegians are like, hold on, let's just see what this little one can do. You know.
Yep. Yeah. Every time I go there, I get another aspect that I'm learning about Norwegian culture that I'm in love with. And you know, one angle is, well, let's just move there, and another angle is, well, let's just spread this information about how they live, you know, so that the whole world can grow in that direction.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, the drop zone culture is part of it, but there's so much more. You know,
Yeah.
this attitude of yes to adventure, as long as it's not going to kill me.
No,
You know,
exactly.
yes, let's do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And another thing about the Norwegian kids is they're really sensitive towards other children. You'll see like 10, 12-year-old kiddies kind of playing with the smaller kids in a very open, sort of respectful way, not in a bullying way or in a dominant way. They're really, really cool like that. And it's kind of well, from my culture, I come from the South African culture. It's very much a kind of a domineering, hierarchical sort of thing. And it's so great to see that amongst the kids there.
Yeah, I think it's healthy, and you don't just see with the kids, right? I mean, to me, the Norwegian guys that, you know, they're climbing mountains and they're base jumping off and they're doing all kinds of high risk sports expertly and safely. They're also very unmacho.
Yes, and they're very inclusive. They're very inclusive. You know, they don't have big egos on them.
No, they don't, and I wonder why that is. I mean, coming from the Viking tradition, you know, you would think that they would be tough and macho, and you know, the alpha male is no, not at all. They sit down and they discuss everything.
Maybe it's more about show than tell.
Yeah, yeah, perhaps. yeah, exactly. To put out a sense of power, and yet on the inside, you know, there's more of a divine feminine sort of vibe, and I don't mean that in terms of female, but in terms of nurturing, in terms of inclusion, like you say. I think it's real healthy. Yeah, I think so. That's why we find some way to go back, you know, just about every year. It's not easy, you know. It's like to pack up the whole family and go for more than a week or two. It's a big deal.
For sure.
It's hard to do.
And hats off to you.
Yeah, but it's worthwhile. Now, so about skydiving, sort of in general. So you do a fair bit of video and things like that when you're jumping, and one of the topics that I get a lot of is everybody wants to stick a GoPro on their head as soon as they possibly can. And they,
Yeah.
they don't necessarily understand what's involved, what the risks are, what the costs are to your awareness, to your experience when you're trying to get the shot instead of
course.
all the other things you could be doing with your free
No,
fall.
definitely. Kodak courage. That's what I call it. Kodak courage. It's
Kodak.
it's kind of, it definitely detracts from your focus.
Yeah, it does. It does. But the role of somebody that's in this in between phase, where I've got my license, and now maybe I get to the point where I'm allowed to get the camera. To how does one sort of tell the story of why it's a good idea to leave the camera on the ground for a while and just build skills and feel good about that.
It's very difficult because, I mean, we live in such a saturated, image-driven culture.
Yes.
You know, it's like, get the shot. It's like,
get the shot, and why?
Look good, get the shot, be safe. You know, those are the, it's kind of, I also see it as like guys who start base jumping, they put on tracking gear like on their second and third base jump. It's like, you really have to learn about your environment before you start trying to bring it to other people or push it.
Well, yes, I think you hit something there that's really important. Is that, are you doing this for you, or are you doing this for what you look like? Right? Are you doing it for the actual intrinsic experience, or to look cool? And if it's to look cool, then maybe re-examining how you feel about yourself and finding a way to nurture a little bit more self-love, where you're validating you, not other people on YouTube validating who you are.
I definitely think about that. Yeah, it's something to think about. I suppose the generation before, we didn't really have the kind of gear that they've got now, and also gear costs a lot more, relatively speaking, back then.
Sure.
So I mean, we sound like a couple of old farts dissing the younger generation, but they're going to do what they're going to do, and they're going to learn from the mistakes. So,
well, yeah, I mean, with my children, I try to go from the angle of explaining why, I feel the way I feel about things, and tell that story in a way that they're seeing the insight, not just an order. I'm not telling you what to do. You're free. You're free to do whatever you want. But at the same time, if you're a little bit more contemplative about these things, you can possibly find a better way than normal. Normal can push you off of a cliff.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
literally or figuratively.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think probably I've had some of my worst accidents. Yeah, I mean, my worst accidents have always been just in my head. I've never had a camera to record them. Actually, the one I had 2 cameras on my head. They both got smashed off my head when I hit the mountain. They lay in the forest for a week, and then another kid ran up the mountain and found both of them. But none of the footage was on there. So all those times where I suppose that the traumas have happened, just in my head, and like, I'm actually quite grateful for that, because I mean, I'd hate to go and review them over and over again.
And they do. Yeah, a lot of people, they watch that video again and again and again, and
that's not a healthy thing.
No, it's like going to the doctor saying, it hurts when I do this. Stop doing that. It's what is your real goal? Extract the lesson, sit down and journal and talk about it, and figure out what you're going to pull out of this that's going to make you a better skydiver.
Yeah, for sure.
And once you've gotten there, it's time to move on to the new visualization of being that.
No,
You
that's
know?
it. The visualization is very important.
Yep.
And if and that imagination is so much more powerful than the pixels on the screen, you know?
Yeah, I think so. I think so because there's this somatic aspect to it when you get into the moment that you want to be in, and you're putting together the pieces of the puzzle of this experience so that you can overtly have it eventually. You know, whether
Yeah,
it's
no,
your
definitely.
first
Definitely.
wingsuit or whatever you put together. You know, for me, when I guide people through meditations of getting back in the air after an accident, right? I work with a lot of people like that. Um, the part of it is about how do you want to feel when you're doing it. That's not on a video
Yeah.
camera. You know, there's not
Yeah,
ones and
for
zeros.
sure.
That's organic.
And visualization is a skill that you have to that takes a long time to acquire. You know, I mean, that's what makes for amazing athletes is their ability to visualize that purpose or that end goal that they have.
Yeah, to see the line, to see the whole experience,
Yeah,
you know, in a way that's believable to you, right? There's a lot of things that people are they see other people do it and they go, well, okay, that's possible theoretically, but until you can believe that you can do it, you know, the gap is too big.
yeah.
But yeah, and along those lines of it, the somatic aspect, maybe you can speak to this as well. Um, the 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 gut, you know, some people call it the sensation in the body when you're about to do something. The discernment of whether this is neurosis, this is just worry through repeating an image of what you don't want, or an actual danger that is bigger than your skills are ready for, or bigger, you know, the winds are too high, or you don't have enough base jumps to be doing this, and you should be walking down, even if it means in the dark, which is hard to do when it's a long walk, you know. Um,
Oh, yeah.
to make that discernment in the mind between a gut sensation that just doesn't feel good, you know, which is it? That's not
It's a
maybe.
very fine line. It's a
Yeah,
very, very fine line.
yeah,
I mean, uh, I mean, you can say I'm going to be brave and do it, but then you can also say I'm going to be stupid and do it.
right.
Most people like to tend to think of themselves as brave, not stupid.
Hmm. Hmm. And
I
not
think,
everybody is.
yeah, I think my redeeming factor most of the time was I did think I was being stupid,
Hmm.
and I knew that the bravery that was in me was maybe a little bit, but
Yep.
it was like I'm gonna do this. Like I suppose I was younger and I didn't have any connections. I didn't have anything to tie me to the world. So
Hmm.
and I didn't really think about hurting myself, you know, which is a silly thing
Yeah.
because actually to die isn't the worst thing.
No, no. Half dead.
Half
Half
death
dead
is
is way
always
worse.
worse. Yeah.
Screaming in agony, far worse. And then living with regret. You know, to me,
Yeah.
that's the biggest one. Is like if I could only go back to that moment and not do
Yeah.
that, you know, not exit. If I could
Yeah.
only go back to that moment and you know, not dump that girl that actually was good for me, but I was bored because it was too easy. Or
Yeah.
there's so many moments of regret that we have. I feel like that's the worst punishment of all.
Definitely, definitely, dude. And for people say I have no regrets in life, I don't think that they've lived the proper life. Then you know, well,
Yeah,
that's a
maybe they weren't. Yeah,
I think
push.
it's a bit judgmental, but maybe they aren't aware of totally aware of what they had, what they lost. Or
Could be, could be. I mean, there's, you know, the Buddhist concept of like when you're meditating, what you're trying to achieve is touch and go, right? So you notice your thoughts, you notice your situation, you notice your body, and you just let it go when you return to the breath, right? And then there's touch and grab, which is to follow the thought and, you know, and be immersed in it, and you go down the rabbit hole, and 20 minutes later you realize you were trying to meditate and you weren't, you know. And then you have go and go, which is letting go of everything and not learning anything and not actually being present, but just, you know, label it thinking, let it go, label it thinking, and then you never get to be in the present moment really, which is, you know, the purpose here. And so I think it's possible that some people are living their life in kind of a go and go mentality where they're not learning anything.
Yeah. Well, they're afraid.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
very
fear.
afraid to admit that they were not doing it the way that their highest self would. You know,
For sure.
so perhaps that's it. But I think there's also there's a, and you've come across these people, lots of them that are just happy bastards. They're just happy-go-lucky, easy going, and they just don't accumulate a lot of like sort of negative residue of regret, of resentment, of
For sure, for
of
sure.
unhappiness,
And
because
I think those are the people who are visualizing things, you know, who have good visualization, because then they're kind of moving forward with the visualization, and they're not kind of
yeah,
picking up on. I mean, memory is such a subjective thing, you know. It's like
hmm
it's not, and there's so much false memory that we have as well. It's
yep,
like a lot of what we remember isn't actually what happened.
right,
You know what I mean? So I
yeah,
think people who are holding on to that past for too long are not really the visualizers, and perhaps if it could be a lesson to learn to perhaps learn good visualization techniques to let go of old baggage.
right, yeah, yeah. To be in the moment and forward looking, maybe is a way to word that. Parachutes don't work unless they're moving forward. It's what's next. To me, that's the ultimate cosmic question that's creating the
Yeah,
universe again and again and again. What's next? That
yeah,
was great, and it's not looking backwards at what was, because, like you say, what you recall is probably not quite what happened, and
exactly.
and what if we were to re-engineer our past through a more positive perspective? you know, from a learning perspective. What did I get out of this? How do I leverage this and turn myself
Yeah,
into a better person, a better skydiver?
exactly, exactly,
Right,
exactly.
right. So I think it's an interesting concept that people think, well, okay, I have my present moment where my actions change the timeline that I'm on. Which future? Most people can get that, but what if you could re-engineer your past through um, I don't know, call it healthy delusion, but to see it in a way that is, uplifting. It's
Yeah,
uplifting.
for sure. Well, I mean, hindsight, like they say, you know, hindsight is something we don't have the what is the word I'm looking for?
Mm.
If we could just have hindsight like that,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
unfortunately,
deliberate.
we don't.
Yeah, deliberate hindsight. Because the truth is, you can't touch the past anyway, so you might as well interpret it in a way that uh, creates the mood that you want now, in the self perspective. Because that's one of the hardest things I notice in skydiving when they're learning is that they have data points. They go through their logbook and here's where I landed in the tree and here's where I screwed up an exit, and they start to build a persona in their mind that maybe isn't so positive. Maybe it's kind of limiting,
Yeah.
um, not so helpful, you know. And it's just a little bit too much, I think, lingering on wanting to tell that story again and again and again about the way you saw it.
Yeah, for sure. Uh, well, they've got lots of video of all their mistakes as well, and I think people tend to pick up on their mistakes more than they do on what they have achieved. You know,
Right.
that's human nature, I suppose.
Yeah.
Being critical.
Yeah. It's like the nature of a happy person. And how does one build a personality that is basically a happy person, that is resilient? Maybe that's the best possible word.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
and you've managed that. I mean, I can see the way you walk through the world, and you don't seem to carry a whole lot of baggage. You're a happy
For the
dude.
most part,
Yeah.
I'm very happy. I'm super happy. I'm very content with life and what I have. You know, super grateful for what I have. Also, from the background we're coming from the subcontinent, from the continent. What am I talking about? From Africa. Like when you walk around and you see what you have and what other people don't have, you're really grateful. I mean,
Mhm.
Not everyone is, but uh, it's healthy to be grateful for what you have. Even because, I mean, I saw people with so much less than me who were grateful for what they had, and that kind of was very eye open to
Yeah,
me. It's
yeah,
like I looked at some of these people and it's like, you have nothing. That's what I thought. You have nothing, and they were grateful for that nothing that they had.
yeah, yeah. So some of the nicest, happiest people I met were the Packers at the drop zone in,
For
I think it
sure.
was Johannesburg.
Yeah.
Right. So they all live in this tiny little hut, just sleeping, elbow to elbow, and they don't jump. They just pack the parachutes, and they're just easy going and happy. And then you got some guy driving his BMW in traffic, trying to text, and he's cutting people off, and he's angry, and he's trying to make his next $10,000, and it's never enough.
No,
It's never enough.
for
Not to
sure.
say that money makes you miserable. It's just I notice that people lose their priorities. That
Definitely.
that the simple things or more importantly, our appreciation of them. I think you hit the nail on the head. Is to be able to appreciate the simple, appreciate what you got now. You know,
For sure.
this
And
breath of air.
yeah, yeah, exactly. This breath of air. You've got 3 minutes without it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. So now, one of the other things I wanted to talk to you about is surfing, because I mean I've done enough surfing to know that it is a monumental task to learn how to do this stuff. The ocean is powerful beyond belief, and
And humbling.
it's humbling and terrifying.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
especially I mean, you get drilled. I mean, how do you get back out? You know, after you've
Well,
when the surf is up big, and you really eat it, and you've got seawater in your lungs, and how do you get back out there?
well, sometimes you don't get back out there. Sometimes you just sit on the shore and you just say, "Well, I'm sitting this one out," and I'm quite happy to do that these days. With the place we're living now has swell lines marching in every day, and I'm quite happy just to sit with my kids playing in the sand when the swell's too big now. Um,
Patience. Yeah.
Patience for sure. And then when I just want to go out and have fun when I'm surfing. When I was young, I was pushing for sure. It was like you're one of the dogs in the pack, and you've got to get your waves and do your thing. But
Yeah.
I'm just happy to go out and get fun and like have a nice view when I'm surfing, get wet, feel the salt water. You know,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
I think it. I think you know 90% of the world lives on the ocean, and we are essentially saltwater mammals,
Yep.
if you want to call us that.
Sure.
So it's definitely something to be connected to, and I think that's where a lot of people get their passion from, and a lot of people get their fear from.
Mm.
Because I mean, so I think one of the biggest life claimers is drowning, is flooding and drowning.
Sure.
If I'm not mistaken, I think it's what takes more people than anything else. Um, so yeah, to get back out there, it is definitely it is something that builds character. The ocean, it's kind of like I've stood on the end of a few cliffs before, and it's been
Mm-hmm.
easier for me to get off those cliffs with that fear of heights, because it's not really it's not something you can really perceive with a tangibility. But when you stand in front of the ocean and you see the rhythms and it's kind of non-stop. It's really something that hits you deep.
Yep.
Where I suppose the fear of height should do the same thing, but I don't know. Weirdly enough, it doesn't do that for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody's different in terms of your past history, and a lot of people believe in past lives affecting what we're afraid of and what we're not afraid of. Um, Regardless, I think that everybody's a little different in
Yeah,
what provokes us. But there's something about the ocean, this massive unknown. It's so big. It's so much energy. It's a kind of a metaphor for the collective unconscious. The below You don't know. There's sharks. You don't know if they're near you. That's the part of
I think
surfing that always scared me.
yeah, I think the dream. Who was I think it's Jung. The dream of drowning is the aspect of not having enough time.
Mm.
And I've had a few hold downs where I thought I wasn't going to come up, and that is definitely makes you very aware of your time on the earth.
Or you're just in the washing machine, and time is just.
Yeah, even when you're not being washed, even when you're just being pressed down very statically, because there's a lot of slabs that we surf in Cape Town, and when you get taken over, sometimes you don't get tumbled, sometimes you're just being pressed down on the bottom, and you've got the whole weight of the ocean pushing you down to the bottom, and it's kind of like you have to relax. You have to really relax. If you don't relax, if you fight, you're using oxygen in your muscles. It's kind of like, yeah, I suppose it definitely makes you very aware of the seconds that tick by.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like a surrender is what allows you to move up that gradient, in the opposite direction of panic.
Yeah.
That where does that come from? There's got to be this cosmic trust that you're going to come back up. That the universe wants you here. That surfing is not pushing against what should be. It's natural, and more likely than not, you're going to come back.
Yeah,
that's very trusting.
for sure.
It's amazing. So, I mean, obviously, every surfer, every skydiver has been to the brink of questioning whether you ever want to do it again. After something happens. For you, what drives you to get back out there, to paddle your board back out into the surf when you remember what it feels like to get your ass kicked?
I think it's kind of like your purpose in life is to be happy, and if you recognize your purpose in life is to be happy, the happy times that I've had in the water have far exceeded the times that I've been unhappy. And even those unhappy times, when you come up and you survived, you have those rush of chemicals in your body which make you happy.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's kind of like a feedback loop on itself. Unless you have something like surfing, it's very rare that you have an incident happen to you that you'll get out the water and you're unhappy. It's like, I know guys have fractured their spines and their necks and had their surfboard fins cut them, and those are unhappy moments, But when it's the ocean dealing you things, it's very rare that you're going to come up having survived something and think, but that wasn't good. That's like, I'm not doing that again. Yeah. Like maybe once or twice I've had that feeling, but then I pushed myself back into the situation, almost to challenge yourself, I suppose. But the reason you get back out there is because it makes you happy.
Yeah. And I think what we were talking about earlier fits in very well. That the way that you interpret your past changes how frequently you're happy in the present. And if you spend all your time just telling the story of whether this time I got hurt and that time that sucked and whatever, that's called miserable bastard syndrome. It's self-sustaining frown.
I've definitely had I've definitely had short episodes in my life where I've had that syndrome for sure.
Yeah.
But you very quickly get out of it if you are engaged in what you are doing.
Yeah. To the experience itself is reinforcing, and it's just filled with joy, and it. You got the pleasure button in your brain, and all you got to do is get back out on the surf or jump out of that airplane or climb that mountain. It's it's a high probability of success, euphoria moment.
Definitely, and I think it has to do with the company you keep. If you surround yourself with positive people, which is really one of the few choices you have in your life, is the people you surround yourself with. if you surround yourself with positive people, the chances that you get miserable bastard syndrome are going to be less and less.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
I think you're right. I think that's one of the most important aspects that sustains these experiences, with whether it's the paragliding crowd or the whatever they. It's like we teach each other how to be happy. We through reminding through behavior patterns, and when one goes below water, the other one's above, going, "Come on back up,"
Exactly. And if you can talk about your experiences and have a laugh about it, and have
Yeah.
a laugh about how stupid you were or how stupid they were, and you've learned something from it, that's kind of a little different to the miserable bastard syndrome. That's kind of like, okay, guys, that happened. We can laugh about it. Luckily, we're still all here. Let's just carry on.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. The community, some call the community of practice. All of us trying to learn a specific skill together.
Yeah.
How to learn together. I think it's one of the most important things, to be a Nikola Tesla or something. You're just on your own, working on your own. I'm not so sure he was the happiest guy in the world.
No, definitely not. But you get the eccentric characters like that. Like, I mean, you got that guy who surfed Jaws for 15 years on his own, And I mean, I don't think he chose to do that on his own, but he was an eccentric character who just thought, well, no one else is doing this with me. I'm going to do it,
Yeah, sure.
And,
Yeah,
but he's a happy character. When you see the interviews with him, he's a happy character anyway. So he's not kind of like a fuck everyone else, I'm going to do this. He's
right.
just, there's a few. I mean, there are a few characters out there who have definitely pushed the boundaries of what we are doing, and we should be grateful for them. We should be grateful for their contribution to what they've been doing. But again, like, there's no need to put a miserable bastard on a pedestal just because he did something good, just because he was proficient at doing something.
Yeah, I mean, you can elect a president that's a miserable bastard, But I think that kind of thing, it's just a mirror, It's just a mirror of the collective consciousness at the time. And then you look at that reflection in the mirror and go, "That's not what I want to be. That's not the role models or the leaders that I want." Yeah, and we have people in our sport for sure, skydiving, that are maybe not the most happy people, but it's the exception, not the rule.
Exactly, it is the exception. It's definitely the exception. I agree.
Yeah, most of the great skydivers I know are awesome. Like, I mean, they're wonderful human beings.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're easy to get along with, easy to have conversations with. And I feel like that exchange of information that needs to happen, it's what allows the whole experience to move forward and continue expanding.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, for sure. I've been very privileged to meet a lot of those people, and they've changed my life. That they've set me on the path that I've been on. If it wasn't for those exceptional humans, I mean, I don't know. To me, skydiving is can be quite selfish at times. Base jumping definitely is very selfish at times, but then it's like I say, it's the people you surround yourself with. If they can bring you in and make you feel like you are part of this mission that is so worthwhile for everyone involved, then it becomes what it really should be.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's a healthy balance, isn't it? If you're completely selfless, a Mother Teresa or something like that, there's a downside to that. And if you're completely selfish, well, there's an obvious downside to that too.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's maybe somewhere in the middle where, altruism and selfishness can kind of, you get the benefits from each.
Be balanced, for sure.
Yeah, that's totally it. And I think that's one of the wonderful things about your role when you're at Voss and you're making the pizzas and you're talking to people, and it actually reminds me very much of when the first several years of skydiving, I worked in a burrito truck at University of Vermont, which is a very erudite community, all kinds of people. And the line was all the way down the street, and the president of the university would come, and the band Fish, those guys would come. We'd roll them up burritos. max veg burritos, and the conversations were the best part. And my boss,
Yeah.
his name was
Yeah.
Monty. It was called Montezuma's Revenge, Monty's Burritos.
Yeah.
He had one conversation that started in the morning, and it ended when we closed.
Yeah.
And who
Yeah.
he was having the conversation with would change hands, but it would just keep going. And you're in that position where you get to be that.
For sure, and I really appreciate that. I love it. I mean, it's kind of like I was an art teacher for many years at a Waldorf school in South Africa,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a really eccentric mentor who was a bit of a misogynist, alcoholic, chain smoker, but an incredible educator, and he would go in and out of the same conversation, with different students, and kind of, it was a blend of knowledge, and he studied philosophy and art, so he could really talk his way around a tree trunk, and keep the children engaged the whole time,
Yeah.
And that was something it was an invaluable lesson to me, is to be mentally and intellectually engaged with people around you. I mean, otherwise you're just talking about superfluous nonsense, and
Sure. Head
there's
down.
so much of that.
Yeah, and people get so filled with all these distractions. It's so easy to just put in your earplugs and sit there with your phone and watch a movie. And okay, there's time and a place for everything, but human interaction. I mean, what's better than that?
No, that's why we're here.
To take thought to where it hasn't been before.
Yeah.
Into the places of creation and solution. That's fun.
For sure.
That's really, really fun. The sport is continually being born, again and again, and we keep adding more. What if, I love that. I love that about the sport. Yeah. Cool. So, so you're connecting in from, now what's the name of the island?
We're in Tenerife at the moment. It's the Canary Islands. It's the biggest of the 6 major Canary Islands. There's a few little islands around it as well. I'm really excited to be in this part of the world. I mean, this winter has been phenomenal. It's just been like a wave machine. We've had swell the whole winter. I think I've had 2 or 3 flat days, and the rest of the time there's just been waves the whole time.
Wow.
Like there's 6 islands, and with the different storm systems that come in, there's different waves that turn on, and we haven't done a lot of traveling this time, but hopefully in the future we'll be doing some more traveling.
For sure. To be in paradise.
It's really good. I actually just very fortunate to get a job offer quite late, because we're leaving in a couple of months, but teaching at one of the schools here, teaching art lessons after school.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I say, we're leaving soon to go back to Norway, so hopefully when we come back I can start that up again. Just getting a little foot in the door on the island,
Yeah, for sure. Oh, that's great. I love it. Yeah, you're living a dream. One of them anyway. That's great. I love it. Well, I want to thank you so much for doing this. We just happened to connect. I mean, it was just today. I was like, I wonder, maybe Makumba has some time.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. It's
always
great to talk to you, Brian.
It's as inspiring as I thought it would be.
Awesome, dude. Awesome.
Yeah, right on. All right. Well, have a great night.
Thanks, buddy, and love to the kids and to Lara, and we'll chat soon.
Yes, indeed. All right. Thank you. Welcome to Skydive Boss. I thought I would give everybody a little tour for those that are contemplating coming to one of the coolest drop zones in the world, if not the coolest. So there's a climbing wall. That's nice. We've got lots and lots of trampolines. And I would call this the most kid-friendly drop zone in the world, because check this out. In addition to the climbing wall, which of course the kids use, it's a weekday, so we don't have so many kids here, but check this out. got a playground. So for those of you that haven't seen this kind of possibility, more trampolines, hammocks. See, this is how we do it. The main landing area. And this is Manifest. Oh look, 2 more trampolines and a slack line. It's pretty good, right? So we'll take a further tour. So here's Manifest, you know. And this is the main reception where you sign in the attendance and stuff like that. Okay. And over here we've got Makumba's Pizza. He makes some of the best pizza you've ever had. Wood-fired oven. Hanging out is easy here at Voss because if it's a little bit hot, like today, you can hang out. Debrief. Food. Give me a little tour of. Woo! And this is lovely lift. Fire and that's a debriefing room, right? So they show movies here and the whole thing. The food is awesome. I mean, you've got the main snack bar here, which is great. And come check this out. So we've got lockers. Hey, hey. And there's the main entrance where we come in. And down here, you've got shower house around the corner. And all these are bunkhouse rooms, bathrooms on both sides, showers. They have laundry, all this stuff. Cute little key card thing for the for the rooms. You got to book ahead for sure. It's as much as you can. Hey, how's it going? So check out the rest of this here. So when we come out, we've got main packing. So rigging loft, other rigging loft as well. People hanging out reading cool books.
Yeah.
Hi. I'm giving a tour. And of course, where the most entertaining stuff happens, right here at the packing mat. Some of the most entertaining conversations on the drop zone at all times. The packers here are freaking hilarious. View is not so bad. And then when you're ready to board, you walk past the fire circle, which is great fun, and out here into the loading area. So what do you think? You gonna come? Skydive, boss? You'll be glad you did.